All right, we are recording.
All right, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Tabby Bellhorn. I am the Director and ASTRA Coordinator for Ohio Hands and Voices. And I have with me today Janelle Frost. Janelle,
hello.
Who is the Director and ASTRA Coordinator for Michigan Hands and Voices. So we are here today to talk to you about some COVID services and considerations for your student. As we get started, just want to let you know that we will be recording this webinar today so we can post it later on our YouTube channel. Also, because we are recording, please be sure to keep your mic muted and your video off until the end. At the end of the presentation, we'll stop the recording and open up for questions. And at that point, you can turn on your video. If you have questions in the meantime, please feel free to use the chat box. Janelle will be managing the technology side today if there are any questions that come up. Let's see what else. Also, we do have closed captions available. So if you would like to use those, you can click in the upper left-hand corner of your Zoom screen and turn on captions. And lastly, I just want to say as we get started that we are not attorneys. We will not be giving legal advice today. We will be sharing information with you to the best of our knowledge at this day and time, because we all know that everything changes so quickly. So we're going to go ahead and talk about some different topics, and it's kind of an introductory level. So if you require more in-depth services or one-on-one support, please feel free to reach out to us. We will give you our contact information at the end of the presentation today. Janelle, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think that's it. And I'm gonna take my video off and let you proceed.
Okay, great. All right, well, welcome. As we get started, I just wanted to share with you the goals of our webinar today. So number one, we just want to help you understand the various kinds of makeup services that your child might be entitled to receive under special education law during our COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to talk about what is compensatory education, what are recovery services, and what is ESY or extended school year, and then how to determine which makeup service is appropriate for your child. First, as we get started, I just kind of want to set the stage and talk about FAPE. So FAPE is a free and appropriate public education. This means it's provided to your child at no cost. So number one here, schools did not fail to provide FAPE because they closed and remote learning occurred, right? So schools across Ohio and Michigan in last spring and some this fall are still closed. That does not mean your school didn't provide FAPE. However, number two, if a student with a disability was refused a service while other students received services, then FAPE may have been denied. So number two, this point gets a little bit messier, but for example, your child could have received all the accommodations and modifications and services listed on their IEP. I know schools were required to make a good faith effort to provide those services. So if a school can prove that they did their best, that counts as good faith effort and potentially as providing FAPE. Now, let's say, for example, a school district said, you know, we can't provide OT services during remote learning because we have to be physically present to do that. Well, I would argue that that's not a good faith effort, and then potentially that may not be FAPE for your child. Or let's say the teacher released asynchronous learning. Asynchronous learning is on your own learning, so recorded videos or lessons that weren't accessible to your child. That as well may not be FAPE if that continued to happen over and over again. We also want to remind you that as parents, you have rights under IDEA. Remember, IDEA is our special education law that specifies parents to be involved in their child's education and also defines what procedural safeguards or parent rights are. So one of those safeguards is the provision of, you know, how do we how do we resolve disputes, or when we can't agree on services or placement, what can we do? So those are called dispute resolutions. And you have the option, a few options are filing a complaint, requesting a facilitated IEP meeting, mediation, or in extreme circumstances, filing for due process. So because IDEA specifies parental involvement, I want to highlight that you are an equal member of the IEP team. So when you're working to resolve disputes or disagreements and just find that common working ground, you are permitted as an equal member of the team to bring your data and to bring your observations to the meeting for the IEP team to consider. During COVID and remote learning, this is especially important. Teachers and providers need to know what you see during remote learning or in hybrid learning while you're at home. So I encourage you to make a record of that. It doesn't have to be, just take a journal and write down what you're observing that day. Any struggles your child might have, what they might be doing well. Some of our students are doing really well during remote learning as well. So just make notes and any questions that you might have as well. All right, so first we're going to talk about if you think that your child hasn't received FAPE during the COVID pandemic and within whatever education and delivery of service your child is receiving right now, your child may be entitled to compensatory services. So fun fact, compensatory education is actually not part of IDEA, but rather it's a result of case law. This is why case law is important. The Burlington case, which went to the Supreme Court of the United States, and a due process hearing from Missouri. So through this case law, compensatory services are traditionally used to make up services when FAPE wasn't provided for whatever reason. So that could be a speech therapist was on maternity leave and they didn't find a replacement. That could be maybe an interpreter quit during the middle of the school year and they couldn't find a replacement. Maybe we went remote learning and we didn't know how to provide that service. Compensatory services are often a result or part of a complaint, mediation, or due process cases and that resolution. They are designed to help a student catch up to where they should be when services were denied. So if services were provided all along, what would have been the expected progress for the student? So they should help to fill that gap. But sometimes in order to fill that gap, it's not actually a one-on-one makeup of time. So if your child lost 1 month of services, your child might need 6 weeks or 8 weeks of service to catch them up to where they should be. So it's not necessarily one-on-one makeup, but it is rather defined as reasonably calculated. That's one of those vague terms in the law. So you have to work together to figure that out. So some families have been asking for compensatory services during this COVID pandemic to make up for services that weren't provided. So Andy Feinstein, who is a special education attorney, has suggested to use caution when requesting compensatory education services. Part of that, I think, is because there's this stigma associated with compensatory services that it's a negative thing. Andy says, just be careful using that. So because of that, I think many states have come out with this new service called recovery services. So fun fact here, recovery services are brand new and were created in response to the impact of COVID-19. So, there's no supporting case law yet. This is coming through as guidance from state departments of education. I know Ohio is saying it and Michigan is using the phrase as well. So recovery services, again, are determined on an individual basis. So what this actually means is, in my opinion, is as a parent, as part of the member of the IEP team, you're probably gonna have to ask for recovery services. I think it would be rare that a school contact you and just say, we're gonna provide these recovery services. Doesn't mean it won't happen, it very well might. But if you think your child has missed services, please ask. They will be based on your students' assessments and progress. So, from March till now, from January to March, what does that progress look like? Again, it's an IEP team decision. Now, recovery services can be spread out over time. So they can be spread out for the school year, and that's going to depend on how much time needs made up, right? So again, recovery services are not necessarily that one-on-one makeup of time. You missed a month of education or service, so you get a month equal back. May not be the same. So that might be why it needs to be spread out over time. So through the school year, could happen before school, during school, after school, could happen during breaks as well. Christmas break, spring break, to keep services moving and progress occurring. So if you are looking at recovery services, here are some questions for the IEP team to ask and discuss. So did the student make progress on the IEP goals and objectives prior to the ordered school building closure period? This is important because if your child was making progress from last August through March, and we see great steady progress, and then once remote learning occurred, that progress stopped, that's going to tell us, that had a huge impact on your child's education there. So we want to, that'll also hopefully give us some information, in March or April when schools closed, where was your child's skill level and ability? What were your students' baseline measurements on his or her IEP goals and objectives prior to the ordered school building closure period? Sorry about that. Again, so that's going to give us a point. How well was your child making progress? Were they on a nice steady path? If they were on a nice steady path, that tells us that the goal was appropriate. The accommodations, modifications, and services were all working really well together. If there was no progress, that tells us something else may have needed to change. So remote learning may not have been the only impact on the student's progress. Does the IEP team have documentation of the progress the student made during the ordered school building closure period in the form of progress reports and other documentation? So this is actually really hard for teachers. I know many were struggling with how do we document progress. I have lots of friends who are teachers. I also have a part-time job in a school, and this was a huge topic of discussion. So IEP teams actually need to hear your thoughts and your observations. So remember when I said just make some notes. If your child was doing great during remote learning, let them know that. Let them know what worked well. Some students actually did perform really well with remote learning, but also many were struggling. So what were those struggles? Did you see your child struggling with technology, or was it focus, or did they just need extra support to help learn the material? I'm just going to go through some additional questions as well. Did the district provide FAPE? I'm not going to expand on all of these because we're short on time, but I do want to share with these. This one is really important. Was the student accessible during the ordered school building closure period for the district to provide services? So was your student showing up for class? Did they have technology available? Did parent or guardian refuse services during the ordered school building closure period? If so, did the district document refusal in a prior written notice? These last two questions honestly will impact any sort of recovery services or compensatory education that might be given. So if your child was struggling social, emotionally, and just really couldn't attend all of those sessions, I mean, this was really hard on some students. And so the emotional impact really did prevent some students from attending school, but you need to let them know why the student was at school. That's very different. I didn't attend remote learning because I was having this emotional and mental struggle versus I just wanted to go play Fortnite for the whole day. That's not okay. So knowing those differences is really key. And if the school did provide FAPE, did the student make progress? So some students may not have made progress, but if they maintained skills, that's great too. So, or did they regress? It's possible they regressed. These are very important questions to ask and discuss as a team. So if you have a meeting and you've asked these questions and you're deciding on compensatory education or recovery services, you want to make sure that there's documentation, right? So you can have an IEP meeting and make some amendments. You want that included. So what you want to include in the IEP document, this right here, WWDWBW, who will do what by when. That's a very, oops, so sorry. That's a very general rule of thumb that you can use for documenting and including information in the prior written notice or in the IEP meeting, or in the IEP amendment rather. In Michigan, they're very specific Janelle's going to talk about this here in just a minute, about what to include, whereas in Ohio's guidance documents, they're more implied about what to include. So we did put them here because even though Ohio doesn't specify it, it's very helpful to know as well. So you want to make sure that services, we're describing services that'll be provided. Who's going to provide the service? What's the time frame? The frequency, location, start date, end date, any documentation or any transportation that might need to be provided. And then, parent input needs to be included as well. That's related to your child's IEP. All right, so Janelle's going to turn on her camera and talk to us about some very specific Michigan services.
Yes, thank you, Tabby. This is Janelle. So in Michigan, we did have a specific document come out back in the spring that was calling for school districts to do what's called a contingency learning plan. You may have heard it, and I'm really sorry that they used another C word because it sometimes gets confusing with compensatory plans, but we're talking about contingency learning plan. That word specifically is a plan with specific directions through COVID. So when Tabby was referring to Ohio, these things are implied. In Michigan, they came out with a specific guidance for districts. And it does include everything that Tabby had previously talked about with regards to FAPE. I think we have a mishap on the purpose up there. I must have missed the word during COVID times. It should say at the end of that, the purpose of the plan. But the priorities are on here, and I really like this listed out. So any of you that need a plan for your student during COVID, I know in Michigan, during this week, we just closed down in-person school again and are going remotely. This plan in particular would help the district and the family with specifics on how to do that. So I just want to go through those real quick. So number one was FAPE during COVID, what that means. And then number two is to write a contingency written plan. Now it's recommended, but not required. So that's key. They don't have to do it, but it is required. Number three, I think is wonderful because it looks at considering any parent counseling and training during this time, because now the parent may be required to do more of that teaching, more of the assessment, taking of information, and parents may need help or direction in that. And that's what number three is kind of looking at. So it says districts, are to consider helping in that. Number four is consider how the assessments are going to be done. I think very key during this time because they'll be taking these assessments at home now. And what does that look like? Number five is to review the impact of COVID, for the child, for the teachers, for the whole team, and looking at compensatory services if warranted. So it really starts talking about this compensatory services and recovery services. So number six is then if, there is, so if you have this contingency learning plan and you go through all these things, if the team, has decided that there was a lack of education to COVID, then we can now prioritize how we're going to do that and have this makeup period. And I think it really does help because this is coming from our Department of Education. And then, you know, it's looked at a little different as this is guidance. We're going to work as a team and not, as Tabby had mentioned in one of the previous slides, kind of like a bad word. It's not, we're looking at how to help our student make up and get to where they need to go on those goals. All right, I think.
Great, thank you, Janelle. So even if you're in Ohio, this is really great information that you can still learn from and apply. So we wanted to make sure that we share that too. So what's the difference between compensatory services or education and recovery services? So this quote right here, these two quotes, I think explained it really well, but this is actually directly from Ohio Departments of Education Reset and Restart Plan. So compensatory education services are educational services provided to a student because the district failed to provide the special education services listed in the student's IEP during the ordered school building closure. Compared to recovery services, the term recovery services reflects the need of learners to recover from any educational gaps in learning caused by expected building or school building closures. So functionally, to be truthful, there's not a lot of difference. It's more about the approach. And as you can read, compensatory services or education almost creates that blame on the school district, which can be really hard and create an atmosphere in a meeting of us against them versus an atmosphere of collaboration and working together. So remember what I said about Andy Feinstein, that he said not to use the word compensatory services or education. Now that was back in April, so very early on in the COVID pandemic, but he was looking ahead knowing our students are going to need some services. But I think he was right on, and I think school districts and departments of ed have created recovery services to avoid this sense of creating blame. So now again, there may absolutely be times when compensatory services are warranted versus recovery. So we can talk more about that if you have specific questions. So extended school year services are another way for students to continue services. Traditionally, what we see, and as a parent, you may have heard this, that regression and recoupment is the determination for whether a student receives extended school year. So what this means is during long breaks, a student doesn't maintain their skills and abilities, but rather regresses and cannot make those skills up in the same time frame as their peers. So this is a big reason that extended school year is provided. Some families, your child may have received extended school year last summer in 2020 because of COVID. I worked with teams who provided extended school year just because they knew the student missed services because of school building closures and that they were going to need some sort of consistency. Some of you may still receive extended school year in the summer of 2021 due to COVID. And either because, maybe schools don't know about recovery services yet or compensatory education. But also know that if your child needs extended school year and recovery services or compensatory services, they can have both. So this is not a one or the other. But did you also know, quick lesson, regression and recruitment is not the only determination for extended school year. Also, so this is just a brief lesson in extended school year services for you. As you're approaching summertime, if your child is on the verge of emerging skills or having some profound breakthrough that the long break is going to impact that, extended school year services may be warranted. And so you will want to discuss that with your IEP team. Again, you want to make sure that you have data and evidence to support your request. Also, the third reason, The nature and severity of your child's disability simply may require ESY services. So be sure that you are documenting any regression or progress. So as you're coming close to summertime, that you can have those discussions. You can look at winter breaks, fall breaks, spring breaks to look at regression as well during the school year. So documentation. If you want to know more about extended school year, I suggest you go to Wright's Law, or you can also check out our YouTube channel where we have other videos. And I know we have a whole Lunch and Learn about extended school year that can give you more information. So if you think your child is entitled to any of these services, extended school year, compensatory, or recovery services, you want to gather data and analyze that, and then make a determination. And then call an IEP meeting so you can discuss this with your team. If you don't know how to gather or analyze data, that is totally okay. You can still think and still know that your child, potentially needs these services. Go ahead and call an IEP meeting and ask for the team to help. The team can help you gather and analyze data as well. Once you've got to that point and you're getting ready for an IEP meeting, make sure you prepare your 4 R's of advocacy. So reason, rationale, remedy, and resolution. Again, we have, if you want more information about that, a recorded lunch and learn on that topic. So check that out. And then you want to make sure that you are attending and advocating at the IEP meeting for your child to get these services into the IEP and make sure that it's documented, amendments and prior written notice. And Janelle's going to talk to us some more about Michigan's plan.
Yes, thank you, Tabby. This is Janelle. This document just came out just this week, and I thought it was very timely. So our Department of Ed came up with another plan, a specific plan. Now, this isn't the contingency learning plan, the whole specific plan for COVID. This is a plan specific for compensatory education. So this is after the team has, decided, and you are a part of the team, that your child is, they were missing out on education. There's a specific plan they can use. The link is up here, and I think it's a great plan to help with those specifics that need to be included in it. I just want to note, I'm not going to go through this. I know we have limited time, and I'll put the link in the chat as well. But you can look this up on the Department of Ed. But I want to note at the very bottom, it says awarded from, and it says either finding from a state complaint, so you may have had to go through a complaint process, the due process hearing, or monitoring activity. So that is key. That means that your information that you've been collecting or the school has been collecting, that you can utilize that to determine if that child does qualify for compensatory education. So I think that's really key during this time, that we're not having to go through all these legal situations, that the team, if they decide it, they can utilize it through monitoring activities. So look that up if you want. I'm going to throw it in the chat box though as well for you to have.
Great, thank you, Janelle. So here are a list of resources that we have used to gather information today and share with you. If you have not seen Ohio Department of Education's Reset and Restart plans, please take a look at that. And if you just Google ODE Reset and Restart, this will come up. There's a specific section for special education services. Also, Wright's Law has information about compensatory education. Disability Rights of Ohio has some wonderful information out there right now regarding these services. I highly encourage you to look that up. I will make sure that the links are included in the description of the webinar on YouTube so you can find those. And Wright's Law, again, has some great information. Pete Wright, who is the lawyer, the attorney at Wright's Law, did a great webinar. You'll see the link right here with Dr. Roseanne. Fabulous. I highly encourage you to watch that too. It's actually, I really kind of geeked out on that. There were like 5 different attorneys, special education attorneys, who were sharing all of their perspectives. And so I loved that aspect of it. Check that out. If you need additional support from your chapters in Michigan or Ohio, please feel free to reach out to us. You can email us. Here is our website. We are here. We are happy to help you. We will continue services. So just so you know, in December, the first Monday night in December at 8 p.m., we have an open Q&A hour. So you can drop in and ask any questions that you may have and ask a panel of advocates from the Midwest region. You can watch for our Lunch and Learn schedule beginning next year. We're taking December off, but in January, we'll have some new Lunch and Learns for you. And again, check out our YouTube channel where we have, I feel like some like social media influencer when I say, check out our YouTube channel, but check that out. We have all of our Lunch and Learns recorded and they're right there. So if you have any questions, please feel free to open your video or your microphone. I think I'm going to go ahead and have Janelle turn the recording off so your questions aren't recorded and your privacy is protected. So thank you all for joining us today. I know this was a lot of information in such a short period of time, so don't hesitate to reach out.